welcome to another hour of the Anti-Media Radio. I am your host, Jake Anderson, in a rainy, dark Portland bedroom. And man, what a week. Oh man, I am pooped. I am just pooped. I'm covered in poop from this week. And a quick shout out to the people who created me, as well as my sister. Somewhere in Albuquerque, there are three river toads gathered around a computer listening to me right now. So a shout out to my beloved family. I'll try not to disrespect the family name too much. Finishing up a project this week, a documentary I'm working on, a Kickstarter for a documentary. So if you're interested in true crime cases and zeitgeist type cases where Room 237, where everyone tries to interpret crazy conspiracy theories, making a documentary about the Elisa Lam case. And if you know that name, it probably means something to you. So look us up. We got wrote up on Dread Central, on Creepypasta, on even Vice. Vice covered us today, our Kickstarter, and we're getting good press for our
Yay!
Yay! And I'm joined by my favorite co-host, my only co-host actually, DB Schwartz. DB, are you doing all right tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. I mean, what we're seeing the disintegration of the structures of our government in front of us. But I do like the Elisa Lam, foray away from reality. Where,
dude, I need it so badly. It's.
know,
I mean, I hate Kickstarters because I hate asking for money, and I'm also particularly sensitive of not wanting to be exploitive of the case, which is why we're enlisting people who knew her and stuff like that. But yeah, I actually hoping to interview you for the film, man, because you've got an interesting perspective on cases like that.
because it's always going to come back to a cult or hidden, and it was, the way they found her. It has a lot to do with numerology, timing things the right way, and then where she was dumped, and all kinds of stuff, man. It's just,
there we go. That's exactly the kind of strange interpretation I'm looking for this film. Because some people think it's closed. In fact, I got a message just yesterday, some guy saying, don't you feel like you're being exploitive? And the case is solved. Haven't you read a Reddit thread, dude? And I took a day, thought about it, and then I replied today, and I explained to him what we're trying to do with the case, and he ended up thanking me. And sounds like has more faith in the project now. But yeah, there's some people that think that the case is solved. I go back and forth. I've read about every document on the case I can possibly imagine. I go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But at the end of the day, it's about more than just a true crime or a mystery. It's also about what happens when mental illness gets confused to something else. Because regardless of whether she was possessed, regardless of whether she was killed, the fact of the matter is she did have bipolar, she did have depression, so it's a sad story of a bad end to a human life. So there's a lot of different ways to approach this. So if any of this sounds even remotely coherent, much less interesting, if you want to go to Kickstarter and look up Lam, you'll see our documentary. It's called What Happened to Elisa Lam. We have 4 days to raise $8,000. So needless to say, I'm a bit panicky right now, but I'm optimistic. I think we're going to make it. But there's so many bigger things going on in the news. And DB, I don't know if you saw this, but WikiLeaks released Vault 7, a new Vault 7 release, Dark Matter. Did you see that?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing they can't get into. So I think once we get down into it, you're going to see the Internet of Things has been collecting all measure of biometric data,
Absolutely.
and that's going to be used to tailor a biological solution to, I don't know, demographics they deem undesirable. It seems like where it's going.
Well, at the very least, it's going to be used for uh, advertisers getting just absurdly accurate profiles of us as consumers. But the interesting thing is, I wrote a Facebook post a couple years ago where I predicted that literally every possible device, smart device that we own, is collecting real-time 24/7 data about us. And a bunch of my logical friends on Facebook called me out and said that the logistics of this are just ridiculous. There's no way, and really, of course, made me seem like I was a tinfoil hat. And at the end of the day, I am a tinfoil hat, and I'm right most of the time, and I'm right about this. And
Well,
so, just
it's
for those of you, real quick, let me just. I'm sorry. Go ahead, DB.
I was just gonna say, the problem people have with um, the reality of this information gathering is they can't wrap their mind around the dissemination of a mass surveillance net that would be, at least not worldwide, but on every grid in at least every country that could probably afford an electrical grid. So
What do they think that DARPA has been spending
yeah,
trillions of dollars on for the last decade? Like
and
seriously, like
and
it
they're right
what do you
about
think
it.
they've
The
been doing?
the dissemination of information it's illogical unless you figure in that there is such a thing as a quantum computing mechanism where they can break things down
They
billions,
call it, well,
trillions, quadrillions of times faster than you could ever imagine a processor here could do.
well,
The
they haven't
problem,
disclosed the reality of that yet, but almost
right?
assuredly the government is using quantum computing. You're right.
They have to disseminate the amount of bytes of information that they're processing. They'd have to. And people go, well, that breaks, the norms and bounds of our reality, and how can they actually use this information and break it down in real time? Well, if they have a 3D model of the world in real time going on that they can access, like imagine you were at a computer playing The Sims, but The Sims was real. That's where
Right.
they're at.
Right. So I actually just stumbled upon this. I'm been preoccupied, so I'm a little out of the loop. But I just found this. This was WikiLeaks. I'm not that behind. It was just released today. WikiLeaks, March 23rd, releases Vault 7 Dark Matter, which contains documentation for several CIA projects that infect Apple Mac firmware, meaning the infection persists even if the operating system is reinstalled, developed by the CIA's Embedded Development Branch, EDB. These documents explain the techniques used by CIA to gain persistence on Apple Mac devices, including Macs and iPhones, and demonstrate their use of EFI, UEFI, and firmware malware. Now, if there's any justice, Apple will take a hit to their stock tomorrow from this. It'll be interesting to see. It might take a couple days for this to gain traction because there's so much other shit in the news right now with healthcare and the Supreme Court nominee filibuster going on, which of course are very convenient distractions from these bigger issues that we're going to get into, namely the deep state. But this is connected to the deep state. This is irrevocably connected uh, because, and I've been, I'm not uh, an expert on DARPA, but I've been written about them before, and the kind of technology that they've been working on has most certainly been conscripted by the CIA, by the NSA, by all of these government agencies, and basically it looks like they have the ability to just track just about any smart device we're using. And this is there were 5 leaked documents here. One's called the Sonic Screwdriver. One's called Der Stark version 1.4, Der Stark Checklet, Triton, Dark Sea Skies. Um, Dark Sea Skies is an implant that persists in the EF1 firmware of an Apple MacBook Air computer and consists of kernel space. There's a lot of technical jargon here because this is complex. This is really complex shit. But basically, what WikiLeaks is revealing here is that, and this is of course a follow up on the original release, which showed that the CIA has been you know working with private companies to well, specifically smart TVs. That was the big release in the first Vault 7 release, which was that the smart TVs have the ability to, and not just the smart TVs, but other devices can record audio even when the device is turned off. And actually, it's more insidious than that because they actually configured an LED light that would make it look like it had turned off when it actually wasn't. So that was particularly insidious. And then, of course, there was the other revelation, which was that the CIA had the ability to essentially manufacture a hacking signature. So basically, it proved that if the government wanted, they could do a false flag bio attack, a false flag cyber attack. And I mean, come on, they're doing everything else that this technology shows. Of course, they're doing that. They're going to do anything they want. They have ultimate power, and that's what we're finding out now is that all of this shit that they kind of laughed and said, "Oh no, we're just using it for terrorism," even though there's, you know, you have a 1 in quadrillion chance of being in a terrorist attack. We're gonna completely take all of your civil liberties away just for the chance of stopping a lightning bolt once every century. But what we're finding out here is that with this new release, they're getting very specific. They're getting more specific, and they're targeting Apple. And this is a big deal. I think this is a really big deal that they're saying that, and they put this in parentheticals, but they said CIA projects that infect Apple Mac firmware parentheses, meaning the infection persists even if the operating system is reinstalled. So this is CIA's embedded development branch. So this is high-tech projects that they're using to spy on us with ubiquity and in perpetuity. This is sinister, DB.
Yeah, I mean, it's Stasi. It's basically bringing that over and taking the technology of the day and amplifying it. And there's really, it hasn't changed. Human nature hasn't changed, and humanity hasn't changed. They're able to get our patterns down to algorithms, and they're able to control us through this grid. This, like you said, man, in perpetuity. There's no stopping it, and the endless diversions we have with war, with professional sports, with alcohol, soon to be with pot. I mean, they got us basically dancing to their tune. So the only thing that's ever going to wake Americans up is if the food trucks stop coming to your town. I think that's really the only way that people will get it. And what I don't think the rest of the people around in this country understand is after you haven't eaten for 3 days, you go a little nutty and you start looking for food. And after 7, you pretty much lose everything but the reptile brain. That the calorie drain's just too much. And that can happen so fast here. And if you've seen the typical American, I mean, we're talking big time problems when pharmaceutical pills stop being taken and fast food stops being consumed. I mean, we are talking about the Walking Dead time bomb here.
Absolutely. We're great metaphor. If there was a complete civil breakdown in America, it would be like every horror movie ever made combined into one. It would be so bad.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as silly as it sounds, the only way you'd be safe is just litter the streets with bodies around your house, and make it look like whoever lives there is just shooting everyone. I mean, that's really the only way you'd be safe.
No,
because
you literally hide in the most awkward random closet with a sack of apples, water, and a gun. And you just sit there and that in these horror movies, I never understand why they just get in some weird random closet and just shut your mouth.
Well, the truth of it is, before it gets to that point, and they'll never let it get to that point because they're not going to allow property damage to their infrastructure. So, anticipate a war or anticipate, Dick Cheney's 9/11 times 100. Something's going to give, something's going to break. They're
That
not going to allow freedom for the serfs. You know,
Well, that would be great for Trump right now. I mean, what's
sure.
funny is that he's always been the one who's been a little bit amenable to the idea of false flags, and here we have
Yeah.
this
Yep.
uh, you
Well, it's
know
used
ta
in business all the time.
attack in
Uh,
London. That
yeah.
I mean, who knows what the hell is going on right now, man? All the wires are crossed right now. But let's go ahead and get into this deep state stuff because I went on a monologue. I went on a rampage monologue in my own head on the way back from a coffee shop yesterday, which was about how angry I am that the deep state idea, the concept, which we've just only recently identified, that this nexus of different interests colluding to create an unelected cabal of people of power interests running the government is about to be jeopardized by the reality of Trump. Because what is happening here is that this is what's happening right now. The liberal establishment is going to use Trump as a justification for the deep state and as a justification for surveillance. That's what's happening right now. You give me any Clintonian in the country, you give me any blue dog Democrat in the country, and any one of them would be like, okay, I'll make that bargain with the devil. If you need to collect our metadata, go ahead as long as you can bring Trump down. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You see the point I'm making right now is that they're going to use Trump as a way to legitimize the deep state.
Or it could backfire, which I believe this has created the rift they needed for civil war because I'm starting to
Dude, I
think
agree
of
with you. I
I'm
agree.
starting to think of people that buy into this propaganda as the enemy within. As
Yeah.
in your intellectual cowardice
You mean the
and
people buying into
yeah,
people that are so hung up on the Russian narrative that they're not looking at the deep state narrative.
correct. And the Russian narrative is a permanent as well narrative, a perpetual narrative, because the Cold War didn't end when the USSR ended. It just morphed, and that's all. They lost in Afghanistan. It broke down their empire. Do you know what's going to happen to us if we lose somewhere? It'll break down our empire, and we're right on that verge. So,
It
I
really
mean, yeah.
it really seems like I mean, it's going to happen slowly. It is happening slowly, but it really seems like the division lines that would need to be there, it seemed like they're firmly in place right now because you
Oh
have
yeah.
a deep state that's not going they are not going to give in.
No.
And Trump is a direct challenge to that. And look, I'm not a Trump supporter because ultimately I think he basically just wants to be the deep state. I think he has that power urge. And I think but look, him finding out that he's been tapped or that and it wasn't a wiretap, but it was metadata collection that was going on to cover apparently this is what they're saying is that they weren't directly tracking Trump. They were tracking foreign agents, and Trump surrogates happened to intersect with that, which of course plays into the narrative. Well, obviously they were talking about certain things. Look, it's possible that Trump surrogates colluded to release stuff on Hillary Clinton. Okay, that's still not as bad as the U.S. government spying on hacking our smart devices to listen to us. I'm sorry. I think that's way worse. And I so that's what's going on behind the scenes right now is we have this epic battle between uh it's basically a coup within a coup is what's going on right now. And we're talking specifically about the deep state power interests that have been running the government for the last 16 years under the surveillance state, starting with 9/11, which used the Patriot Act and all subsequent legislation to install a surveillance apparatus that gives them ultimate control. And you have a guy in Trump who I believe accidentally stumbled into this fight. I think we have different perspectives on this a little bit, DB, but I don't view Trump as a hero. I view him as an accidental soldier in this war. And
He's an
I
accidental president, but he is legitimate.
You think he's legitimately trying to battle the deep state?
No, I believe he's legitimately been elected by the Electoral
Oh,
College. That was
I agree.
63 million people that voted him in because they were desperate.
I
And that's not
agree.
going
I
to
mean, what you
stop,
got to sit here and use the fucking Logan Act to try and
Yeah.
delegitimize a presidency? People didn't want Clinton. That's all it came.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. They did not want Clinton because they didn't want this same bullshit deep state running for 16 years.
People that
Do I think
don't
Trump's going to be better? No. I'm actually happy that this battle is happening right now. I hope we don't all die in a civil war over it. But
Well, yeah. I mean, it was either that or it was conflict with Russia. I mean, something was, like I'm saying, something was bound to give because this experiment doesn't work. The problem with culture is it unifies, and if everybody's coming from different places, yeah, that's great. Multiculturalism is awesome when it works, but when it doesn't, and it doesn't work everywhere. Everywhere is not Portland. Everywhere is not where I just moved from San Diego. When you move to different places, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? There's a lot of places, there's tons of conflict, especially in the interior of this country. That's what I've learned, and of
uh,
course in the South.
I think it's not working because the middle class has been
It's
eviscerated
gutted. Yeah, it's gutted.
by these
Well,
greedy
check it out, Jake.
by hyper capitalism is what's done it.
Exactly. And
I
then,
don't think it's, I do think it could. I think multiculturalism would work if people were living more economically sound lives.
correct. But how do you do that? That's the biggest problem. We're living in a completely false paradigm of scarcity. Here you have a person like Trump that's a billionaire, probably taking orders from people that are, in all literal terms, trillionaires. And we're arguing over scraps using immigrants as scapegoats. And we're getting ready to fight wars on multiple fronts, including from within. I mean, how did Rome fall? Rome fell the exact same way we're falling. It's
Yeah.
eerie.
And I think it's particularly one of the most sickening parts of this to me is the scapegoating of immigrants and refugees on this. And that's something Trump is doing that I just cannot forgive him for is
Well, every single attack that takes place, though, Jake, gives that legitimacy. Legitimacy,
what an ass, dude. There's
unfortunately.
been so little like people.
Well, a lot of it's
Come on,
getting
dude. You know
whitewashed
the
too. You have
numbers.
to know
You know the
that.
numbers. Way more people have died from American cops than from fucking refugees by a matter of like 100 to 1.
Naturally, of course. But I don't categorize refugees with terrorists. I don't consider them the same, and I think they're very obvious when they're coming in. Families with
But Trump
children.
doesn't see the difference.
Right. Well, you have a blanket statement when you have a hammer, everything's a nail. That's what we voted in. We didn't want to vote in a wet sack, so we voted in the hammer. I mean,
Well,
like
when you say we, first of all, you're talking about half of a
not
half
even 63
population.
million people. Yeah.
Half the population, probably
Right.
half of which did it reluctantly anyway, just because
Right.
they didn't like Clinton. So you
Exactly.
have a
No.
very small mandate here. There is no mandate, in fact.
Well, the mandate could be done by force, which is where we're headed. That's the biggest problem. So, if 63 million people want it bad enough, what are the other 180 going to do, or whatever are considered adults going to do about it? It only takes 3% of the population to counteract a government. I think we're well over that in this country. I think we're headed towards 20%.
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen as quickly as you may suggest. I think
But it only takes collapse, though, Jake. That's all it takes.
well, you
Just
mean
one day, the ATMs stop working. That's all it takes.
right, but I think that the power interest would, if they had to, would just flush a bunch of. I just don't think they'll let the collapse happen that quickly because they have too much to gain from keeping it as it is right now.
Maybe, but the jig is kind of up, man. I mean, a critical mass,
Not
I
for
believe,
most.
has been reached.
I don't know. I think we overestimate how many people are aware of these issues we're talking about.
Perhaps. I mean, I really don't know, man. I try not to talk to people that are just, not in the loop, but I don't know, man. I do hear it, at least up here among just even acquaintances. They kind of know what's going on as far as, things in the world. But you're right, man. We're completely insulated here. It's a bit freaky with our military that's strong as it is.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, just the concept of the deep state, man. I mean, I'm willing to bet you, like, less, I mean, what do you think? Less than 1% of the population knows what that even means.
I don't know, man. I don't. How many people use Facebook in the U.S.? Is a third of the U.S. on Facebook? Like
Yeah, but
100 million, maybe 100 million people on Facebook, and then I don't know how many. You think only 1% of them? Maybe I don't know. I have no clue, man. I'm friends, like I said, with at least Facebook friends with people that are sharing stuff that's teaching me things. So, and there are some people that drink the Kool-Aid and are eating up this whole Russian narrative and still think the Steele document has any weight or balance or measure. I mean, the guy's MI6. He's CIA across the pond. I mean, at a point, you got to realize it's a propaganda department. That's what it is. It's a war for your mind. It's won your whole life. Now there's finally a little crack in the window. You can see through the other side, and it's just a big room full of shit.
yeah. Backtrack for a second. Summarize the Steele document for me. I might have missed that one.
Well, this is where Trump's peeing on prostitutes and watching him do. So here's the thing. I'm sure he's a super alpha male. You know what I mean? The guy probably wants to, he's probably degrading to women. Who knows? Who knows
Probably.
What he's like? He's a robber baron. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have him on tape saying he grabs women by their genitals without asking. I think it's safe to say that he's degrading towards women.
That's just shower room talk between gentlemen. Anyway, I don't know, man. I think what they got on him would turn him in. It would show him for being what he is, which people already get it. Yeah. They voted him in, like you said, because he's not Clinton. Because we realized what Clinton was. We realized that it's a regime that just changes faces, and they were running the same agenda we don't want. Nobody wants that agenda, and nobody wants Trump's agenda either. But at least with Trump's agenda, we're not 100% sure they're just screwing us over.
Well, like I said, I like the fact that this is happening because we're going to know a lot more about this power structure in 4 years. Or I don't know if he's going to last 4 years, to be honest with you.
But if they get Pence in, if they get Ryan in, I think after Ryan, it's some guy that's barely even in the game anymore.
Well,
Paradis or something.
He would stop at Pence. They're not going to. I
don't know. Who knows, man? I mean, they're out for blood because this really threw their whole. Once the TPP went down, and now there's a new one that they're trying to rehash. But
yeah,
once it screwed up their.
Do you realize how much work went down the drain on that? I mean, they were working on that in secret for like fucking half a decade.
What they were going to do, this is what the TPP was going to do in reality. A lot of people can read into this. What it was going to do is create the U.S. and the Pacific Rim that they were going to all compete for the lowest common denominator and drive the prices down. It was going to make a job in the U.S. that didn't require special training be paid on a global competitive scale. Do you know what I mean by that, Jake?
Not really.
Like a McDonald's worker right now that says they're trying to fight for 15, you'll be fighting for 5. That's what it'll be. You'll be lucky to get that 5.
Well, TPP was way more far-reaching than that. I mean, it was about making it easier to prosecute for intellectual property rights.
Yeah, they had a lot of riders.
Establishing corporate tribunals to overrule national legislation about the environmental laws. I mean, it was a train wreck. I posted the day they killed it. I said, not a Trump supporter, but I gotta hand it to him. I'm happy they killed TPP.
Even Bernie gave rare praise to Trump for that. So what it did was it scuttled the globalist grand plan, which was going to be to make the U.S. and all the other countries in the TPP the new third world, and they were going to shift the consumer class over to China, and they were going to physically move themselves and their assets. When I say they, of course we know the people that run things. They were going to relocate. They're here. They're in Europe. They were going to move over there. And the reason why is because the government's got total control over there, and they don't need to worry about their own physical security or safety. They can do whatever they want anytime, any place.
It was basically a one world government with the language of China. With the language of money. I mean, it wasn't, it was going to break down national borders.
Yep, got the U.S.
for the sake of corporate rule, though. It was a one world corporation, is what it was.
Yeah, but it was centered in they were moving their assets, their gold, the things that mattered, we're moving to China, and to, of all places, Kazakhstan, which you can go down a completely different wormhole with what Astana is and what that city really is. And it's still standing there, but now it's on hiatus because they don't know what to do with it. And that's a different wormhole. That's the end of the world wormhole. That's a whole different, episode we can do. But
So these these revelations also bring to light the importance of surveillance, of international surveillance courts, and how important of a power lever they are for the deep state. FISA courts are probably the most underrated aspect of the deep states, because what these courts allow the government to do is to basically in secret get permission to spy on people. And that's the accusation in what happened with Trump, is that essentially the FBI received permission through the FISA court to look into some of their dispatches and dossiers. But all of this, it's turbulent, but man, are we getting to learn a lot of really juicy details about the inner workings of the deep state. And it is fascinating.
What are we learning about human nature, Jake, that we can take forward as a lesson and change things for the next generation? Because this perpetual cycle of World War, depression, recession, and then this golden era for a few decades, and then the cycle starts again. Of course, we know who it's benefiting, and it needs to be broken, because I don't think we can have a world war again. I don't think any of us would live through it at all. So
yeah, there's no way.
How do we make it so it's unpalatable for them? I mean, they have all these stupid dumbs they've built on our dime with maglev trains underground everywhere. All the advanced countries do. They don't care about nuclear war. I think the only thing they're, like you said, they're waiting on is just to squeeze every little last ounce of any kind of profit out.
Yeah, that's what they're doing with oil right now, and then they're going to switch over, and it's going to be a completely different gridded world. The
Carbon tax.
The Internet of Things is going to take over. People, the average consumer will spend most of their waking day in virtual environments, completely tuned out, because it'll just be too depressing to deal with reality. That'll be the next major drug, is living in virtual environments, I believe. And it's this I think probably one of the most noxious, dangerous things in the world right now is not the government. It's not corporations. It's the global citizenry giving in to ubiquitous consumerism instead of making. And perhaps 3D manufacturing, perhaps artificial intelligence will allow people to break out of that. Once automation takes over and people lose their jobs and there's a universal basic income, maybe people will start making things again. And obviously people make things now, but I mean your average everyday person needs to be creating their own reality. And I don't mean creating their own reality in terms of a virtual environment. I mean creating the food, creating the labor, instead of relying on these corporations.
Yeah, it is a totally brave new world. It's just, we're going to have to change the way we think about everything. Right now what we do is we're big on reward and immediate gratification and playing the games of the system to enrich people above us. We get those crumbs. Even people making $100,000 a year, which is great. You're definitely making somebody a couple million a year with your labor efforts. I mean, that's the way it works, and that's the pyramid, and that's what creates poverty. It's all trickle up all the time, and it just, the way they reorganize it every so often is with Great War and Great Depression, and we've got to get off that system, man. It's just, the paradigm shift in our thinking is going to have to be that every human being, regardless of where they live, where they're from, or anything about them, except for their actions, is worthy of, like you said, at least enough to take care of their basic needs. I don't know about basic income. My biggest problem is people would abuse it. Like you'd still have homeless guys on the street that are using their $1,300 a month on booze. But I mean,
I'm
maybe,
not advocating it. I'm just saying I think it's going to
yeah,
necessarily have to happen because
yeah, it does.
when
But
they
it's
lose,
gonna have to be,
their job, then the only
yeah,
way that the only I mean, when everyone loses their job, it's either universal basic income or the road. I mean,
right.
it's
No, I mean, they want the road, so we've got to set it up. I just don't see them paying out. What I think we could set up instead would be like a transition to an agrarian type of, advanced modern lifestyle, tiny homes, 1 or 2 acre micro farms where you can grow the hell out of your organic vegetables, bring them to a Whole Foods market, sell them, make a profit. It's got to be something like that because you keep handing out income. I mean, look at Australia. People think Australia is great, but in Australia, if you don't have like a master's degree in a science, it's very hard to get lucrative employment there. And so, what do you have? You have a bunch of people with bachelor's degrees that are on the dole forever. Like that is not a society that functions well. And how are they dealing with it? They're immigrating a lot of people with technical skills. Why in the hell are Australians not getting their degrees in technical skills? Well, because it's cheaper for the companies to just bring them in to import that help. So why home grow them? And that's the biggest problem we have now, man. It's just like you said, corporations abuse the hell out of the process, start to finish, worldwide.
right. So there's, if you turn on the news right now, you're gonna get a couple of other things, and so I might as well get your take. And by the way, you guys, make sure everyone should check out the antimedia.org homepage. They set up a really cool new system for aggregating news, and it allows you to upload articles that you would like to see covered. It's really a cool system the way Nick set that up. But definitely what is trending right now are the fact that tomorrow Trump will receive his first major test. Him and Ryan will their asses are on the line in terms of trying to pass this healthcare alternative to Obamacare. And right now, it looks like they don't have the votes from the Freedom Caucus of basically it's for 8 years or for however many years they bitched about Obamacare, and now it looks like uh, Republicans, the moderate Republicans and the conservative Republicans, uh, very well might vote down the alternative, the repeal part of Obamacare. And, you know, healthcare kind of makes my eyes go dry, to be honest with you, because I just don't understand a lot of the, uh, a lot of the logistics of these bills are pretty wonky if you don't know policy on that kind of subject. But this is a major, major vote because if they lose this bill, if a Republican majority, they control the House, they control the Senate, and they have the White House. If they are unable to get the basic votes they need to pass a replacement, man, they're going to look like fools. And I think it's going to and this is why I'm bringing it up, because we don't normally, me and you, DB, we don't get bogged down in these stupid visceral political issues, but it's going to vastly catalyze the political environment if Trump is issued another loss. He's already lost all of these executive order judicial rulings. If they lose this as well, while at the same time Democrats are promising to filibuster the Supreme Court nomination of Gorsuch, you're talking about, I mean, this is going to be major political war going on at the very same time as we have this surveillance espionage war going on. What the hell is about to happen? I mean, seriously, I don't even understand how we're going to get through the next year.
Yeah, I don't have a clue, man. I, I mean, it just depends, I guess, on who you think is going to win because there's a conflict going on now, and it's the public opinion is still split again, even though they've dragged Trump through the mud and he's basically screwing himself over because he doesn't know what he's doing. I
Yeah.
mean, still, people are like, well, the alternative, though, we already know what it does, and we know why they're fighting so hard. And that in itself is really a scary thought process to think that people that can literally Michael Hastings you at any moment are fighting really hard to get the guy that, let's face it, even if they're misguided, people did vote that guy in. And they are in gun friendly states where the economy is extremely poor and that can create a tinder keg. And I think a big reason why Trump won is because those people came out in droves and they just powered through a lot of states and made entire counties turn red. So I don't know, man. A Civil War 2.0 could happen. I don't know. I just don't understand what it would mean. I don't even know what it would look like.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen quite yet. I just think
No,
that
it'll take a long time.
it's going to take decades at least. But I do think we're witnessing the early embryonic state of it. And really, I think the only thing that could stop it is uh, advanced technology. I mean, I think the paradigm is about to change so vastly in the next 2 decades from artificial intelligence and automation that it's almost going to just kind of almost restructure the way we even think about our life. And I think that, though it probably won't be uh, particularly enlightening, like I don't think humans are going to find the meaning of life in artificial intelligence, but it's going to so dramatically change the landscape that, I mean, it could save us from a civil war, frankly, because it's just going to change things so much that uh, it's going to be very, very different. I mean, think about 20 years ago. I mean, we didn't even have the internet. 20 years from now, we're going to be living in fucking virtual environments. I mean, it's going to be just a different way of life.
It's
And
going to be really weird, Jake, too, because I was, involved in my industry. We work on a lot of mechanical type things. And one of the things we're noticing is there's a massive problem with no technical skill blue collar workers at all. It's all like 50 and 60-year-old dudes that are putting in systems that people need to like be comfortable and live in buildings. And so you're totally right. We're starting to live in this virtual environment. The work will soon be a virtual environment. However, you're still going to have a physical body. So I think that if you're not going to college for a technical degree and you're not immensely talented at your liberal side of things, meaning you're not going to be an author or you're not going to be, something where you can make a living at it, a great alternative, and this is maybe the way it's going, is we need technical colleges to come back bad, like really bad. We have such a massive lack of people that can fix anything at all or use any heavy machinery at all. And some of these pay rates are ridiculous, man. Like 150 grand to operate a heavy crane. I mean, if you're out there right now and you're really intelligent, like probably there's some people out there listening, go learn how to drive a damn crane. It's 150 grand a year. How hard could it be?
yeah, yeah, um, things are about to get interesting.
Yeah, you're going to have this permanent class of people that there's no work for them, but there's work. You just got to, I mean, not everyone can do it. That's going to be the weirdest thing going forward is you're going to have some brains to do any job, period. They're just too complicated. Any job, you have to know how to use computers with pretty good proficiency, if not be able to teach yourself. And then if you can't, you got to go back to college on the job. I mean, and I'm seeing this all the time, and I'm constantly training. It's like, it's a ridiculous future. And if people are struggling with simple stuff now, you're right. What do we do? The basic income is going to be the bridge, but there's going to have to be some kind of a way to make people so they can at least grow their food, at least.
Yeah, I think, and that's kind of an agorist philosophy that a lot of anarchists like Derek Rose that I follow, is proposing with his Freedom Cells work, and I think it's interesting. I didn't even know what agorism was a couple years ago, and
It's the only humane and compassionate future we have because anarchy is going to call out the weak and the stupid. They don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that except the evil. So that's the
yeah,
next
I
best
totally
thing.
agree. I really agree with you on that. That I
Micro
think
farm
that
for everyone.
anarcho anything is it could work in 200 years or in 100 years maybe, but it's just not realistic for right now.
Well, yeah, because people are still going to be jerk offs to the weak, the stupid, the poor, the sick, and try to take advantage of them, take more than they need. Why? So they can have power over others. It's going to be just simple like that. You got to give everybody the means to have pride because they're self sufficient. That's it. That's all you got to do. Then you get rid of like 99% of all crime because most of it's economic. Sure, you'll have crazy people still, and there's going to be better and more ways to locate, identify, and get them in places they can't hurt people as we go on. It's happening now. Pre-crime's real. If you don't think they're using algorithms inside of a police station as we speak, then you don't understand where computers are. But
They're
you know,
absolutely using pre-crime. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. They know exactly where and when and how many people to station and patrol and what for at any given time, and they have crime records that they can go back forever and they can see crime in real time, and they have cameras everywhere. That's important. So we have to go neo-agorist. It's going to be Maslowian socialism, I'm telling you, because it's either that or it's World War III, and we're not going to live through it. So those are the two options right now, because they're not. I don't think we can travel to space yet en masse. I don't think we can go. Earth's getting too crowded. We got to spread out. I don't think it's there yet. And if it is, it's definitely where we're going to talk about later, breakaway civilization, secret society status. Maybe there's the brain drain going on again because there was one in the 60s that happened. I don't know if you've ever read about that, Jake.
But I'm sorry, about what?
There's officially the brain drain of the 60s. There was a time when a bunch of very intelligent people just disappeared.
Hmm.
You can look into it. And there's also Black Jesus in the 60s. You should look into that.
So just to backtrack quickly, I will look into those. Just to confirm what me and DB were just talking about in terms of pre-crime, we're not talking about the precogs from Minority Report, although uh, it has been documented by a recent WikiLeaks uh, dispatch that police departments and law enforcement agencies do routinely use psychics on the job. But this is an article I wrote 3 years ago for my site, The Ghost Diaries. It's called DoD Military Simulation Creates a Sentient World. So basically what the Department of Defense did is they created a simulation project, and it's a digital world with billions of nodes that represent every person on the planet. It's called the Sentient World Simulation, and it's a synthetic mirror of the real world with automated continuous calibration with respect to current real world information. So essentially what they're doing is they're creating a simulation that is going to try and calibrate everything that's happening on the earth and then try and use that to gauge what's happening. Now, obviously, do they know what's going to happen around the corner at every given moment? Of course not. But they basically are try and they're integrating data mining from social media in order to create the realism of it, and
Its real value is economic type of precasting, and then to tie that in with the NSA's data mining in real time, the real stuff like video and audio, to use for blackmailing purposes, and then economic sabotaging. Like, can you imagine coordinating like, dude? Can you even imagine like you could coordinate a hurricane with HARP to create a problem for a crop, and then like make the trade minister of that country like sell everything that was now swamped underwater to like a fruit company up here for like pennies on the acre.
yeah,
You know, you know.
yeah, that's a different. That's a That's a really cool future conspiracy theory. I actually wrote an article once about conspiracy theories of the future. That's a cool one.
That's the only reason they have it, and that's where they take it to. And then the ultimate goal is that if you have enough money, you're going to be able to afford transhumanism and live for hundreds of years, if not forever. And then we get immortal bankers. Yay!
Yep. God, of course we want the bankers to live forever.
Damn it! I mean, if only David been able to live a little longer, we would have had world peace.
I'm trying to find this damn article I wrote about future conspiracy theories because I love it. No one else does, but I think it's brilliant. Now, some people like it. Okay, here's 5 future conspiracy theories that I wrote. Oh God, this gets so out of control. Zombie containment requires martial law. Project Bluebeam. Google driverless car assassinates world leader. Life extension corporate employment plans. Oh man, that's good stuff. I love conspiracy theories. And what's so beautiful about them is that so many of them are turning out to be true. It's great.
Well, what can the mind conceive will eventually create. So whatever. They're not going to tell you when they have cool stuff. You're going to find out when it hits you in the face.
Yeah. 10 years from now, government scientists will report that a rogue asteroid that has somehow avoided detection is on a collision course with Earth. The vast majority of us are herded underground, while the elite get to watch the impact from posh spaceships. Either the asteroid is faked in order to fool even the rich, or they are part of the scheme and don't need to be lied to. Either way, a nuclear device is detonated to simulate the asteroid's impact. Meanwhile, the Earth is rigged and outfitted with whatever diabolical technologies are required to carry out a slow depopulation agenda. Or the underground cities are gassed, killing the vast majority of humans. A much more comfortable 500 million person population inherits the Earth. Oh, what
So
a
the best thing you can do is don't get herded in like cattle into one of these underground facilities. Just find your nearest cave.
Yeah, run away and create your agorist little community and grow some vegetables. Uh, Maybe have a few
Bury a
goats.
greenhouse underground. You can grow year round anywhere. So it just has to be not even. I don't even know what it is. I think it's like 3 feet under the soil line. So it's not so hard to create a high tech agorist community cheaply, and the land is cheap in places where there's a lot of water, and it grows. There's food grows all the time. So
The
I don't know.
question is whether the government would even allow, if vast numbers of people started to do that, would the government even allow it, or would they find some way to sabotage it?
You need to, I think, maybe come with a number of real significance when you say vast. Like, if 10,000 people decided to start their own place, that would be probably pretty impossible to do anything about.
Right.
So it would need vast numbers. You'd need to have people willing to move there that were extremely talented lawyers and doctors and such, since there'd be few of them. But I mean, if people were wanting to have freedom, and again, you'd have to either invest a significant sum and or have good skill set that would benefit the communities. Because honestly, what's going to come about when a real anarchism by necessity happens from economic collapses, if you can't survive, you can't survive. Like, there's not going to be, where's your net? I mean, your family and friends can provide you some, but you're going to have to be able to make money to eat. So I don't know what's exactly going to happen, if you can't grow food. And maybe it'll just come to necessity that people are like, shit, man, things are getting really expensive at the grocery store. Like, I'm spending all my money on food and rent. I don't go out
Dude,
anymore at all. Like, so
I spend so much money at the grocery store. Like,
yeah, we're going to get a CSA just to try to get cheap organic food, and if it's seasonal, so be it. We'll learn to cook whatever's in season. But yeah, we're thinking about getting land, and it's not a lot to just buy a parcel. You do not need a lot. I'm telling you, if you can get a quarter of an acre anywhere in the city and just take the time, or maybe even pay somebody if you have that kind of scratch to go out and bobcat it, get a 3-foot well, and then put you can put any kind of glass, anything over it, as long as it traps heat. That the heat's going to come from lining the sides of your greenhouse with decomposing soil, because that creates heat as it decomposes, and that keeps it warm all winter. And then you can grow all year round, man. There's a guy that grew like 2,000 pounds of food in his backyard. I mean, that's enough. You can live off that. Does anyone out there need more than like 4 pounds or 5 pounds of vegetables every day? You couldn't even eat that. You get sick of it.
Chris Christie.
Yeah, he wishes he needs that, dude. But I mean, if you have a family of 4 and you grow 5 pounds of vegetables a day, you're good. You're perfect. So.
Jesse, you hear that? Jesse's my sister. She's probably listening right now. That's what we're going to create. We got to get a parcel of land like DB's talking about. Start growing some food for mama and papa.
Well, if you're in Oregon, you may not even need those greenhouses. You just, because you really only have like a mini winter, right? What is your winter, like a month or 2 now?
I've only been here one winter. It was a pretty brutal
yeah, I heard.
winter. So it was a solid 3 months.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the average is, but I know that it was more ice and snow than is usual. But
yeah. Well, it's just whatever makes logistical sense for people. But the truth is, organic produce is extremely expensive. But if you have it as a staple in your diet, you're going to be super healthy. You're going to love life. And if it's free, you're going to be like, hell yeah. And then you can sell it. It's organic.
What could be more satisfying than growing your own, just living off of your own labor? That's to me that's heaven.
Yeah.
DB, as always, it's been wonderful speaking with you, and to everyone out there, keep looking into the deep state and keep educating yourself, and we'll make it through this somehow. Good luck. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. My name is S. M. Gibson, and I am the host